Welcome to The Disappearing Mind, a unique podcast helping you find clarity and support along your dementia journey. Now, join National Dementia Trainer and Coach Dawn Platt for an all-new episode.
Hello and welcome back to the Disappearing Mind podcast. I'm your host, Dawn Platt. We're here to help families, caregivers, and anyone interested in brain health understand dementia in a compassionate, clear, and practical way. On today's podcast and during this month, I'm pretty excited. We're going to be talking about brain health, cognitive health. And today's episode that we're kicking off with is called Brain Health is the New Heart Health. What everybody needs to know about dementia, its risks, prevention, and cognitive reserve. I'm so glad you have joined me today, and I'm going to be talking about something that really affects millions of people, and that's dementia. But more importantly, we'll explore what you can do to support your brain health, not only for yourself, but for your loved ones and perhaps those that you care for every day. The interest in cognitive health and really brain fitness and wellness has surged recently, moving from a niche topic for the aging to a mainstream focus for all generations, especially millennials and Gen Z, driven by a desire for preventative care and optimized living. This conversation has shifted towards being proactive, living a lifestyle based on strategies for maintaining long-term health and brain vitality. There are some trends that are driving this, and some of those key trends and contributing factors to this growing interest probably includes a preventative mindset. Consumers are no longer waiting for brain issues to arise. Instead, they are proactively adopting habits and seeking products early in life to support long-term brain and cognitive health, and potentially to reduce the risk of neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's disease. The impact of modern life, I think the pressure of a fast-paced, always online world have led to common complaints of brain fog, burnout, and mental fatigue. The COVID-19 pandemic further amplified these concerns, accelerating the focus on mental well-being and resilience. Scientific advancements, a deeper understanding of neuroplasticity, which is the brain's ability to change and adapt, and the gut-brain connection, which we're hearing about so often on the news and certainly online, has made people more aware of how daily activities and diet directly affect brain function. The holistic and personalized approaches that we're seeing people take in their life and taking accountability for their own health in the brain health market is moving beyond a standalone supplement to an integrated science-backed solution that's combining nutrition, exercise, sleep, and stress management, often personalized to the individual needs and lifestyles of people. There are some strategies that I want to talk to you about. I'm very excited about this topic. I'll tell you, in my career, in my early career, these are things that were only rarely talked about at an occasional conference. It wasn't something that physicians and really even experts spoke about all that often. So to see and hear people being engaged and being excited about brain health and what we can do and use it in the same sentence as heart health is pretty exciting to me, since I've spent my career in geriatrics and spent my career helping care for people, helping direct people and families in cognitive decline and symptoms that are leading to dementia or will lead to dementia. So for me, I'm very excited to see people get involved, and be interested. But there are some strategies out there for cognitive wellness that I want to bring to your attention. And I want to share with you on the podcast because I think that not only is the audience caregivers, but people who are thinking about their own health, their own future, especially if you're a caregiver that's had a parent who has suffered from any type of dementia. I think it's a point of concern and a legitimate point of concern. But what are those strategies for cognitive wellness that we're seeing and we're hearing about? Well, research, including landmark studies like the U.S. Pointer trial, suggests that lifestyle modifications can significantly impact cognitive function at any age. So we're not just talking about older age, we're talking about any age. Some of the recommendations, some of the things that we're seeing come out is in and around physical activity. It is recommended that regular moderate exercise, physical exercise, 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week, is strongly linked to better cognitive function, better brain function, and a reduced risk of decline. What's good for the heart is good for the brain. That's what the experts are saying. Along the lines of nutrition, a balanced heart-healthy diet or brain-healthy diet is what we're hearing about. This potentially is one that includes brain-boosting foods like fatty fish, blueberries, nuts, leafy greens. These things are key, according to the experts, to maintaining and boosting your brain health. There's a growing interest in anti-inflammatory foods and the role that the gut plays in brain health. We're hearing this more and more, especially post-pandemic. People are really looking at that connection. Mental stimulation is another area that we're seeing a lot of recommendations in. And those recommendations are engaging in a continued learning, taking up a new hobby or playing games like puzzles and card games helps to strengthen neural pathways and build what we call cognitive reserve. Mental stimulation is good to continue even after a diagnosis of something like dementia. The other area that's recommended, and we've talked about these things before on the podcast, is social connection. Maintaining a strong social network, social ties, is linked to a better cognitive function, according to the National Institute on Aging and the Alzheimer's Association. This can reduce risk of depression, as well as build cognitive function. Sleep and stress management. This is a point that I'm hearing more and more younger people begin to talk about and realize how important it is in their life. And in this day and age of high stress jobs, online stress, and the stress in our world today, prioritizing quality sleep and using mindfulness techniques like deep breathing and meditation can help manage stress at all levels, which is a major factor impacting cognitive performance. I think we know this historically. If we're not getting good sleep, we're just not up to par. But really, these studies are going deeper, and watch this particular area as we move forward. How much is going to come out about our need for sleep and new stress management techniques that will be beneficial to our brain health. And then managing health risk. Working with our healthcare professional to manage any cardiovascular risk like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, managing diabetes, or any other chronic disease that is really crucial for our physical health, but it is crucial for our long-term brain health. In many instances, dementia is directly impacted by what we call a comorbidity or another health factor or nutrition factor that is impacting the person. These tips from the National Institute on Aging and the Alzheimer's Association are great resources. They offer a lot of evidence-based guidance in promoting cognitive vitality. One of the things as I was researching for the podcast, I found and was very excited about is if you want to delve deeper into this, and it's really my reason behind doing this podcast, there is tons of information out there and available from experts, from legitimate and valued healthcare organizations, insurance companies, and other experts to be able to learn more and more at any age about how you go about preserving your cognitive health. I want to kind of roll back a little bit and talk about understanding dementia. This is a dementia journey podcast. And although we address 4 stages of understanding on the podcast, let's talk about understanding dementia in its simplest of terms. So let's start with a question that many people ask. And that is dementia just a normal part of aging? The answer is absolutely no. Many older adults live their entire lives without developing dementia. Normal aging can include things like a little forgetfulness, weaker muscles, or stiffer arteries, but dementia is very different. It's caused by changes in the brain that affect memory, thinking, and daily function. Here's a striking number that I put in my research and I like to talk about because I think it's a stark reminder that we have to do something in the United States and throughout the world. But here's the number. In 2014, so over 10 years ago, approximately 5 million adults aged 65 or older were living with dementia in the United States. Think about that number. By 2060, that number is projected to nearly triple, almost reaching 14 million. These people are people with families, friends, and communities who will need support, understanding, and care. So this is not going away. This is not shrinking. This is something that we will deal with here in the United States. It will require more healthcare, more support, more information, and more resources. So this is a huge topic for us to really look at as individuals. Perhaps you're listening to the podcast today and your loved one is someone you know and care deeply for begins repeating questions, misplacing items, or struggling with daily routines. You might wonder, is this normal aging or what's going on? Understanding dementia helps us recognize early signs and provide the right support before daily life becomes more challenging. And this can be something as simple as a person's just off or a person is just forgetting a lot of things. There are a number of things that may be causing this that's not dementia. There could be a medication that's impacting someone. It could be stress. It could be lack of sleep. It could be nutritional deficits. There's a number of factors that impact cognitive wellness and the ability to process effectively or at your norm. So understanding dementia and the difference between normal aging or just being off to actual dementia is going to be very helpful for you and your friends and family. There's some specific risk factors and early signs that I want to go over. I think is important when we're talking about cognitive health to understand that dementia is influenced by multiple factors. not just one factor, and not all of those factors are under our control. Age itself is the strongest risk factor, but there are other factors that can influence dementia. And I want to just review a few of those with you so that you have a better understanding. Obviously, cardiovascular health, chronic high blood pressure, out of control diabetes, high cholesterol. These are known factors that will impact dementia at some point in life, especially if they become chronic and are left unchecked. At some point, it's going to impact that person's brain. Lifestyle habits. These are huge, okay? Smoking, physical inactivity, obesity, poor diet, consuming all processed food, tons of sugar. We now know that those things are impactful when it comes to people developing dementia. Alcohol abuse, recreational drug abuse, all of those factors and lifestyle habits are going to put you at risk for dementia. Mental and social engagement, staying mentally and socially active reduces risk. I'm at the latter end of my career. I'm not at the end of my career, but I have no real plans for retirement at this point because I am mentally active. I love what I do. And people talk about that all the time, especially younger people than myself, always talking about, don't you want to retire? I'm looking forward to retirement. The thing that scares me about retirement is the fact that people are not mentally active. They're not outgoing and doing. It's one thing to sleep in on the weekend, but to sleep in every day and to not socialize or use your brain in the workforce or something else, I find that dangerous for me personally. And I think that retirement's not all it's cut out to be. Do I want to have that time? And do most people want to have that time? Of course they do. But I think staying mentally active, having purpose, going to work, contributing to something really keeps people in a sharp place. It's something to consider and think about, especially if you are near retirement and you want to. Make sure and make a plan to replace the things that you do with something besides just being leisurely. It's important. Routine is important. Purpose is important. You may switch it to a voluntary activity or pick up some new hobbies. Whatever you do, keep your mind engaged. Keep busy. Keep at something. And I think that that's really important to consider when you're talking about risk factors. Early signs often include, and we see this, and I like to go over it and pinpoint it for a number of reasons. And number one is sometimes I have met people or coached people who actually thought they had dementia and simply were having some early symptoms. And in all reality, there were other medical conditions or perhaps a past condition. I recently had a coaching session with an individual that had had a head injury from a major accident that occurred about 5 years ago, and they are not as sharp as they were. We really had to look at what kind of engagement this person could add into their daily routine to use a different part of their brain than they were currently using. We found this to be very effective, and I think that you can do the same thing. Listen, folks, we don't use all of our brain, and there are many areas that lay dormant, and like any muscle, will get flabby. So think about what the early signs are, and if you see any of these signs, take action on it. It may be something as simple as you simply are not using that part of your brain, and you can add just a few things we'll talk about here that are going to sharpen your memory, your thought process. But here's some early signs. Memory loss affecting daily life. It's one thing to forget things now and then, but when it affects daily life, meaning your daily routine or others around you or your family obligations, that's an early sign that something is changing. difficulty planning, especially activities that you've planned and taken care of. It's been a routine in your life, or solving problems. You might find that problem solving, things that were really easy to you, become very difficult and even frustrating. That's an early sign that something's changing. Doesn't mean you have dementia. It means something's changing. You need to get it checked out. Confusion about time or place. Absolutely. We get busy and we forget what day it is of the week. But listen, if you get confusion, actual confusion, don't fool yourself. Something's happening. Something's changing. Get it checked out. And then changes in mood or personality. So I'm not talking about the occasional getting upset here. I'm talking about actual change. Uncontrollable change in your personality or your mood, and you don't seem to really have control. These are early signs that you could look at and understand and really have this checked out. Recognizing early signs is crucial because research shows that interventions, especially lifestyle changes early, are more effective when you start sooner than later. I want to talk about cognitive reserve. I know that most of you may not be familiar with this word. I'm going to talk about it this month. You're going to hear me in multiple podcasts talk about it. What is cognitive reserve? I'm going to get into it a little bit in today's podcast and a whole lot more in the next episode. But cognitive reserve is the brain's built-in protection. It's an incredibly powerful resource that the brain has. What is cognitive reserve? Simply put, it's the brain's ability to adapt and compensate when it encounters changes or damage. Think of it as your brain's backup system. The more you build over time, the better your brain can handle stress, age-related changes, and even early signs of cognitive decline. Why is that important? Cognitive reserve can help someone maintain independence and function longer, even if there's underlying brain changes that are occurring. It doesn't prevent brain changes completely, but it gives your brain flexibility to cope with those changes. How can this cognitive reserve be built or rebuilt? Well, the great news is that cognitive reserve can be strengthened at any age. That's what the experts are telling us, and I want to give you some of that information today because I think it's very powerful for those of us that are looking to improve our brain health. Mentally, what is recommended is learning new skills. That doesn't stop when we get out of high school or college. We can learn new skills at any age. We're not talking necessarily just rocket science here, but learning new skills, very important to our mental state and to our cognitive health. Read. Do puzzles. If you had not done puzzles in the past, it's going to be a very powerful way to build your cognitive reserve. Engage in problem-solving activities. One of the things that I recently recommended to this person who had been in the car accident was that game, Simon. It is really a formulated game that allows you to go back and try and memorize or follow a sequence that gets harder and harder as you play the game. Pretty simple, but actually it's very effective in keeping yourself sharp. Socially, maintaining friendships, joining clubs, volunteering, engaging in meaningful conversations. These are things that are very purposeful and keep us sharp. It is highly recommended that you remain socially active. And then physically, regular exercise increases blood flow and supports brain function. There are a lot of simple things you can do. I will get into that more as we go along. It doesn't mean that you have to be in the gym every day. It doesn't mean that you have to exercise like you're 20 years old. at all. Remaining physically active is really important to brain function. Even if the cognitive reserve wasn't a focus in earlier life, starting today can still make a meaningful difference. It's never too late to give your brain more resilience. Picture two people at the same age with similar brain changes under a microscope. One of them stays socially and mentally active. The other isolates and rarely challenges their mind. The first person may show a few outward symptoms, while the second may experience noticeable memory issues. That's the power of cognitive reserve. Cognitive reserve isn't just for healthy brains. With the right rehab plan, it can also be rebuilt after a stroke, brain injury, or other medical condition that impact thinking and memory. In these cases, rehabilitation focuses on helping the brain create new connections, strengthening existing ones to compensate for the damage that's occurred. I think most of us know someone that's gone through something, whether it be a car accident with a head injury or had a stroke or had a debilitating accident where they lost some cognitive ability or function. And for those with a stroke, it can be pretty severe. Does it have to be? It can be less, but we have seen them go to rehab to work through a process, 6, 8, 10, 12 weeks of rehabilitation and gain back, if not all, much of what they have lost. We've all seen that. Each of us has seen that. And this is what cognitive reserve is about. This is what we're talking about, only in another aspect. So here's how the rehabilitation process works. And I put this in here because I think it's really important. We've all visited someone in the hospital or in a rehab center, and we can kind of relate to this. And then I want to really have you think about it in the aspect of brain health. It's really the same process. Obviously, the steps are different, but it's something that we're more familiar with than we think. First, the rehab process begins with assessment. Your doctor, the medical and therapy teams evaluate which cognitive and physical function have been impacted. But for cognitive function, is it memory, attention, language, or problem solving? What's been impacted by this illness that you have suffered? They create a therapeutic care plan or targeted therapy based on that assessment. Individuals engage in brain exercises tailored to meet their needs. This can include memory games, problem-solving tasks, or exercises that challenge attention and processing speed. And then what you find, and if you've ever gone to visit someone during their therapy time, you'll find that they're not going to let you visit because it's repetition and practice that makes the difference when it comes to rehabilitation. So just like rebuilding muscles after a physical injury, the brain strengthens connection through repeated practice. Over time, the person can regain skills and develop new strategies to handle daily tasks. And then that integration into daily life. When you're in rehab, therapists work with individuals to apply these cognitive exercises to real life activities. For example, remembering steps in cooking, or following daily routines, or managing finances with support. That's where it begins. And it's repetition, and that's what they work through to help you regain what you've lost. And then there's this supportive environment. Social interaction, encouragement, and structured environment help reinforce progress. And that's where caregivers play a key role in providing that guidance, support, patience, and motivation. Having that supportive environment when perhaps this whole process may prove very frustrating to the individual who's trying to regain function. you play a cheerleading role, a supportive role, which really makes the difference in the whole rehabilitation process. So why does all this matter? And why am I talking about it? It's because science tells us that even after significant brain changes, the brain remains remarkably able to adapt. It's proven. Experts are talking about it. The information's out there. Rehabilitation and targeted activities essentially rebuild cognitive reserve, allowing individuals to regain some independence or maintain what they have, confidence and quality of life. I've seen it over and over in my career. I'm not here telling you that this is a cure. It's not a cure, but quality of life is hugely important when we're talking about that dementia journey. I see my patients who remain as active as possible have more quality of life and less decline than those who do not. That's why I wanted to talk about this today. Imagine Mr. Lewis, who experienced a mild stroke affecting his memory and attention. Through these daily routine exercises, guided practice in walking, cooking, and weekly therapy sessions, he gradually regains his skills that he thought he'd lost. He may not get them all back, but he can regain some of them. And over time, he may enjoy reading, managing his own medications again, or staying socially active. Cognitive reserve is actually being rebuilt step by step. And it's a powerful, powerful therapy, something to think about in all of our brain health journeys. Normal aging, cognitive changes, and dementia is something that we always talk about on the podcast. But it's important to understand what's normal and what isn't when it comes to cognitive changes. With age, it's expected that we're going to forget names or misplace our keys or take a little longer to learn something new. That's normal aging. But with some changes, especially cognitive changes, it may go beyond normal aging. And we may see something as common as mild cognitive impairment. We call that MCI. That's the condition where someone experiences noticeable memory or thinking changes that are greater than expected for their age. But the daily life is largely unaffected. People with MCI are at higher risk of going on, if nothing is done, to develop dementia. But early recognition provides an opportunity to implement strategies and medical care that can support brain health, slow the progression, and maintain as much independence as possible. When we talk about that, I want you to think about other factors that might be impacting your cognitive health. Stress, we've talked about that, anxiety or even depression left untreated can impact your cognitive health. Sleep disturbances. If you are not sleeping a good 6, 7, 8 hours a night, perhaps you should talk with your doctor and get that taken care of. Continued sleep is very important for cognitive reserve, for brain regeneration, for the body to rest and regenerate itself. Medication side effects. This is a large one. And let me go back to the person that I spoke about who had had the car accident and the brain injury from that car accident. The additional thing that we found is that he had actually had a respiratory condition, ended up being from allergies, more allergy related than it was infection related. And he began taking some medicines, nighttime medicines for cold and all of that. And it really caused some brain fog for him. Medication side effects are really important. If you are suffering any kind of cognitive decline, go to your pharmacy and ask your doctor to take a look. Is there any medication I'm on that might be impacting this, or talk to your doctor about it? Again, medical conditions like thyroid disorders, vitamin deficiencies, or uncontrollable diabetes, urinary tract infection, cardiovascular issues. These are things that will impact cognitive brain function and worsen those functions for people who do have dementia. But dementia, on the other hand, does affect day-to-day life. It is not something that comes and goes, okay? Forgetting to pay bills, getting lost in familiar places, struggling with tasks that were once routine. You need to understand the difference between normal aging, MCI, and dementia. It will help you respond accurately with patience and support, and to find practical interventions rather than just be frustrated. Early detection and early support really make the difference in quality of life for you and your family. Just a few more things I want to go over because I think they're important to include in the podcast. And it's something that as a caregiver, family members, or someone learning about dementia, I often guide people through what I call the 4 steps to awareness and action. And I think that these are important for people to know. If it was an occasional person I meet that's going through this, it would be different. But I meet people everywhere who learn what I do and ask lots of questions because they're impacted by these things. Not always with full-blown dementia, but they're impacted. They want to know. Their grandfather has it, or their neighbor has it, or something like that, and they want to know. Here's the 4 steps to awareness and action. Number 1 is awareness, recognizing early changes and asking questions, okay? If you recognize changes, get an evaluation. It doesn't hurt to get an evaluation. Make it part of your annual physical. Cognitive health should be part of your annual physical. Number 2, knowledge. Learning what dementia is and what dementia isn't, and the available support is critical. An accurate diagnosis is one of the key things that will make a difference in your journey. It may not be dementia at all. It might be something totally different. Getting an accurate diagnosis. Don't settle for less. Application number 3. Using strategies at home in your daily life like routines and cognitive activities. If you're not sure what's going on, take a look, evaluate your medicine, evaluate your sleep, evaluate your stress, evaluate your routines. This is going to be critical, and apply new strategies in your daily life. And then number 4, advocacy. Supporting your loved one or getting support and influencing the broader conversation around brain health is going to be critical to your success. By moving through these stages, you as a family member or you as an individual can feel more confident, prepared, and emotionally resilient. There are things you can do. That's what the podcast is about today, things you can do. The last thing that I want to run through before I close the podcast is I've compiled some tips from leading experts and organizations on brain health that I feel like are good tips for you to include in your brain health journey. These are lifestyle habits to protect your brain health no matter what age you are. And here's some good news. There's plenty that you can do to protect your brain, especially if you're a younger person, okay? Move, okay? Move your body. Aim for at least 150 minutes of moderate exercise per week. Physical activity improves brain flow to the brain and supports cognitive reserve. This is according to the Harvard Medical School and their Healthy Brain Initiative. Eat well. Diets like the Mind Diet or Mediterranean diet that are rich in vegetables, fruits, whole grains, fish, and healthy fats are linked to better brain outcomes. This is according to Rush University and Mind Diet research. I will tell you that whole foods are what you want to focus on because that is what's recommended. Cut out the sugar, cut out the extra carbs. This is something that is going to really be part of a successful brain health journey. Challenge your brain. Learn new skills. Reading, puzzles, strategy games that help strengthen neural connections. This is from the National Institute on Aging and Brain Health, okay? This is a critical thing, and I think those of you that are active feel like your brain is pretty healthy. You're never too old or it's never too late to try and pick up some of these skills. Staying socially connected, we've talked about that several times today. Engaging in meaningful social interactions reduces the risk of cognitive decline. This is from the Alzheimer's Association in their social engagement guidelines. Sleep and stress management. This is from the American Academy of Sleep and the Mayo Clinic in their brain health division. Quality sleep helps consolidate memories and mindfulness, and reduce stress. Techniques protect brain function. Even small changes make a difference. The key is consistency, not perfection. For families and caregivers, these habits can be incorporated into daily routines to support both their own brain health and the well-being of those they care for. In closing, I want to wrap up today and say that dementia is not an inevitable part of aging. Understanding the facts, recognizing early signs, and building cognitive reserve can protect your brain and improve quality of life for you. Your action step this week is to pick one new activity to challenge your brain or connect with someone socially. Keep it simple, keep it consistent, and notice the difference it makes. Thank you for joining me today. Stay curious, stay compassionate, and keep caring for your brain and your loved ones. Until next time, this is Dawn Platt. Make it a memorable day.
Thank you for joining us for the Disappearing Mind podcast. We hope it's helped you find clarity and support along your journey. Be sure to subscribe to never miss an episode, visit our website to suggest future topics, and share the podcast with friends and family.